Hello, this is Crypto Neptune, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the Telcoin hearing and some interesting nuggets that I want to share with you. And we're also going to talk about the recent price action. As TelFam, some people were reaching out to me. What do you think about the price action for today? So we're going to dive into that. But the gist of this video is to talk about my experience as I travel down to Lincoln to be a part of history, or at least a step towards history. Remember, nothing I say is financial advice. Only use risk capital. And thank you to those who continue to support the channel. So I was sitting here in the back. You can't see me, obviously. I'm off camera, but they called Paul Neuner to the stand first. And forgive my spelling here. I operating on a little bit of sleep, so forgive my spelling here. But they called Paul to the stand, and he went through pretty much a battery of questions. This hearing is more or less a filling out process to say, is Telcoin ready to go to the next step to be a digital asset bank? Do they have all their ducks in a row in order to get to that point? So this was this what this hearing is about. Convince me that Telcoin is ready to be a digital asset bank. So a lot of those leading questions were happening during this. But something that interesting that kind of stood out to me is they were asking Paul about additional banks and partners within the state of Nebraska. And one of the things he kind of brought up is says Telcoin is 100% positioned to help big and small banks in the state of Nebraska get set up with digital assets. We have the resources to help. So you know how it is with the traditional banks model as it is right now. They have the old banking rails. Well, with Telcoin, they would be able to kind of connect those dots. Now, he did emphasize that this is not a priority at the moment because they have other things that they're looking at right now. But in the future, they definitely want to work with big banks, small banks, and help them get to the next level with blockchain technology. And I'm going to be going back and forth, so kind of bear with me. I have some notes here also. So basically, they asked him about reserves. How would Paul handle the reserves? And he said the plan is to hold reserves with multiple banks. So that's important because what if there's like a mass withdrawal issue on the Telcoin app or some sort of liquidity issue? He said it makes sense to have reserves with multiple banks, which is pretty smart. So again, they're trying to find out, is the Telcoin team able to handle being a digital asset bank? So they're asking all these questions. And then somebody asks, okay, will the bank's partners be vetted? And then Paul goes on to say, yes, any bank partner that we work with will be vetted. So that was, again, another key factor in which was brought up. Paul also kind of talked about the staff, and they asked him, okay, so how are you guys set up? He said, currently we have 40 full-time employees, and then 15 to 20 are contracted. So they, again, is the business set up for success? So they have that infrastructure. They have some key talent and key employees. So they wanted to look. They wanted to look underneath the hood of Telcoin and kind of how it's set up. And then they also kind of talked about if they're in an event there would be need for additional capital, would you guys be able to come up with the capital? And Paul pretty much said, yes, we'll be able to come up with the extra capital if needed, depending on the circumstances. So again, a lot of probing questions, but a lot of leading questions because they want to make sure that they are positioned to be the change of the future, to be that digital asset bank. And then again, forgive me, I'm just kind of all jumping around here. They brought Tim to the stand, and he is pretty much head of compliance. So anything related to compliance, he knows it. He's been doing it for years. And one of the statements, like I mentioned here, that stood out, he basically said, we are positioned to be compliant should bank charter be granted. I expect large growth for Telcoin. So he gave a great argument, being pretty bullish about Telcoin, and again, he is one of those guys that are really just want to be compliant, but I'm trying to think of the word to say, but he's really detail oriented. He wants to make sure that every dot is dotted, if that makes sense. Every T is crossed. That's the type of guy that Tim is, and the impressions I got from him when I actually got to speak to him personally today. But so this went over well with the panel, and then going over here to okay, they mentioned so he mentioned that compliance should be set up with multiple areas of expertise. So you can't just like have a compliance department and it's all jumbled up together. You got to have different layers of expertise, and he made sure to bring that point across to the panel. Then they asked him about, okay, what would happen if there's like a liquidity price crisis or a bankruptcy? Would customers be taken care of? So that was a smart question by the panel, and Tim basically said yes. Digital assets are held one-to-one, so customers would get their money back or a refund in the event of liquidity crisis or bankruptcy. And then he went on to reiterate that it's backed by FDIC. So a smart question by the panel and a leading question by the panel, but it was something that needed to be put on record to say they want because the Nebraska Department of Finance, they want to make sure that the customer is also taken care of. So I'm glad that this question was brought up in front of everybody, in front of a room full of bankers. So good on Tim for answering that question. And let's see, let's go back up to Patrick, he takes the stand next. Patrick gave a compelling testimony given that he is a traditional banker. So what I try to say here is the room is filled with bankers. But again, I had a long day with traveling, so forgive me for my typos on these posts. But he says, our number one priority is to onboard new customers and also grow jobs in Northeast Nebraska. So right now, that seems to be the number one priority right now for Telcoin. So what do the new customers look like? So that piece of it I didn't get. So my thought is it could be potentially just you and I, new partners, or again, Telcoin is a helping telecom providers get onto the blockchain. So again, that would be another customer base. So I would think those two pieces there would be what he's talking about as far as bringing on new customers. But again, a smart move here by Patrick by saying, and also grow jobs in Northeast Nebraska in the Norfolk area, because there is a need for jobs in that area. And again, that should have been an eyebrow raising moment for the panel. What does every state want? They want job growth. They want to help areas that need job growth. So this was a smart play. And another reason why Patrick's testimony was pretty much spot on and it was needed for this type of hearing is because he's a traditional bank guy and he can relate to the bank guys that were there. And he gave a compelling story about in 2021 how he wasn't really all in on crypto until he heard about Telcoin and started working with Telcoin. So he had some ties to Telcoin way back in 2021, but once he understood what Telcoin was trying to accomplish, he had that, and with the financial act that they had, and he had that light bulb moment. It all clicked for him. He said, "Okay, I need to be able to work with Telcoin because I can leverage my banking skills with blockchain technology and kind of tie that all together." So that's why I feel Patrick was a smart hire and he made a lot of sense when he was there giving his testimony. And let's see, Patrick also says Telcoin's impact could be a catalyst for other banks. So meaning other banks in the state of Nebraska, and then spanning out outside of the state of Nebraska. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves because Telcoin, number one, they want to get that approval. They want to get that approval, that bank charter approval. Number two, they want to have the chance to bring on new customers, create more jobs. And they asked Patrick also, they asked him, okay, so how soon would you be ready if a bank charter approval would be done? He said, so basically he said, if given the approval January 1st, that would allow me the time to go out and get the additional resources I need, meaning hiring personnel. So he'd be really instrumental in getting that new hires hired in Nebraska. Then from there, then they would be positioned to, continue that business growth. But right now, it doesn't make sense to hire new people because we're waiting on that banking charter piece if it makes sense. So hopefully sooner than later. And then here's another picture here. So I'm not in this photo, but I was able to take this photo of a TelFam member here and another TelFam member. I got the chance to speak to everybody. It was a pretty upbeat crowd. I would say that the hearing was informal because there wasn't any mics. Like when you go up to the stand and there's like a mic and you can hear it. So it wouldn't have been good for anybody to record it anyway because some of it was muffled because there wasn't a mic when somebody was talking. Some people spoke up loudly, and then some you had to really listen to hear what they were saying. But the overall atmosphere in the room for me was people were excited about this potentially being a catalyst for a stepping stone for history in the state of Nebraska. And the reason why I say that is because I spoke with Kelly Lammers, he is part of the Nebraska Department of Finance. So he was on the panel, and I'm just sitting there chilling, minding my business, right? And he comes up to me and speaks to me, shakes my hand, and goes on, we go on to talk about how this is an exciting moment for the state of Nebraska. I say, yeah, this is some big time stuff, merging blockchain technology and traditional banking payment rails together. So just by him having that presence, coming up to me, speaking to me personally, again, I'm just a Telcoin investor. So he came up to me, talked to me, I shook his hand, and we had a great conversation. And then there was another panelist also, I forget her name, but she came up and we were all talking and stuff like that. And her main thing was, okay, is Telcoin put in all the compliance, put in all the security? That's kind of her niche. And judging by the conversation that I had is she was impressed how well prepared Telcoin was because she says she's been in these hearings before where companies have come in and wanted a hearing and they weren't prepared. Guys, Telcoin had like 110 pages of document. Now, they didn't go through the whole pages within the hearing, but it was there present on the table because I overheard them saying, it's like, yeah, it's over like 110, 11 pages. And I'm dead serious. I was like, whoa. Yeah, so whoever got to read all that, pretty much good for them. But now, getting to the price action today. So I wasn't paying attention to the price because I was busy at the hearing. But the guy next to me says, and why am I losing his name? He basically says, and forgive me also if you're listening. He says, yeah, did you see that Telcoin is mooning? So this right here, the hearing started at 9 o'clock. So because I got there like around 8:30, and while we're sitting there waiting, it just started just rocketing up to what is this price here? Let's see if it'll let me. Yeah, it was like 0008 and some change. Yeah, 0084. It got that high. And soon as it started, there was a sell off. In my previous video, I asked Tell Fam, what do you think? Do you think this is a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event? And lo and behold, that's what happened. They ran it up, they ran it up, they ran it up, they ran it up, boom, sell the news, boom, and that's it. So now, could there have been potentially some confusion from some folks? The community tried to reiterate to say, hey, this is just a step in the approval process. Now that all the facts are out there, they have everything they need to approve Telcoin as a bank, a digital asset bank, then we'll get that. Now, could this potentially happen sooner than later? Again, the vibe from the room, it seems like they would try to do their best to push it quicker. And I found it kind of funny that today Mike Floyd, he kind of, let's see, let's go to his page. I don't know if I can find him or not, but he started talking about digital assets today. I don't think he started talking about Telcoin specifically, but he just goes on to talk about who he's working with, and Mike Flood is a big part of the what's been happening in Nebraska in digital assets. But he kind of brought that up today. So if you think he's not paying attention, maybe Mike might give him a little bit of a nudge to say, "Hey, get this approved quicker than sooner than later." It's the way I see it as the thing that when I got from Kelly again when I talked to him is it's an opportunity for Nebraska to be in the forefront and not behind. So that's why it's important for them to have the first digital asset bank here in Nebraska. Other banks being able to leverage their resources, but also, again, establishing a legal and governmental framework that could be used for other states at the federal level. So that's why it's important for all that stuff to happen. So I hope this video provided you with some value. And again, thank you for bearing with me today. Like I was multitasking and trying to do the best I can with relaying the message in simple terms. Trust me, you would not want to listen to a hearing if you had all the legalese and all the legal terms in it. So I tried to pare it down as easy as possible for you so that you understood. But exciting stuff, again, cool to see Telfam present. There's Patrick, Paul, Tim, JT, and and again, Telfam members here. Shouts out to those guys. They're real cool. Everybody again was really cool. And then let me see, where was the building? Yeah, this was the building that it was held in. So this was the building that it was held in. And so, but that's it, guys. That's pretty much all I have. Hearing went well. Everything, again, went as good as it possibly can. The room was upbeat. It was informal, but the room was upbeat. And as far as the price action goes, today, like I mentioned, that was a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. Now, from this point, I would say this. It's going to need Telfam to put Telcoin on its back until this approval is done. The community, excuse me, is the biggest asset of any crypto project. We have a huge community, so Telfam is going to have to put Telcoin on his back, and then everything else kind of just coming together at the same time could catapult us to new all-time highs in the future. Again, not financial advice, but we will kind of continue to look at the markets and see. So I want to thank you for listening, and thanks for stopping by.